everyone, welcome to our discussion on the chosen ones. Our earlier discussion related to the blessing led to a number of questions. And this is actually an old question, and it is related to the chosen ones. If you are like most people, you have grown up hearing people referred to as the chosen ones, or you have heard people refer to themselves as the chosen ones, or perhaps you yourself have identified yourself as a chosen one. This is generally tied to biblical scripture, and you will often hear people use this term. And you hear it more and more if you are on the internet, on social media. You have more access to more people actually saying this. And it is usually related to identifying with what is known as the patriarch Abraham in the Bible. And there is a passage, as a matter of fact, there are several passages related to Abraham being chosen. And not only Abraham being chosen, but his descendants being chosen. And in fact, some people understand the idea of the blessing related to Jacob and Esau, relating back to this idea of being chosen. And that in securing the blessing and the birthright, that was the way to secure being what is known as God's chosen. Now, what's interesting about this is that when individuals are asked about this chosen status, I don't know about you, but this is the experience that I have had with individuals and this question about the chosen status. Many people have difficulty with the blessing questions, but with the chosen status, it becomes a little bit more difficult. What happens is that when asked about the chosen status, individuals are quite able to articulate and that there is this chosen status, and often that they are one of these chosen ones. Now, I want you to think about a game of basketball or kickball or football, or if you're playing a game and teams are chosen. And let's say you are the person who gets to do the choosing. Let's say you're playing kickball and you have 10 people from which to choose your teammates. And usually you choose people based upon what it is you think they are going to bring to the team to make the team most effective. And so you envision some sort of action on the part of the individuals that you choose. And people often shy away from choosing those individuals that they don't believe will bring up the standard of the particular team. So they want the most effective people along a particular dimension to be on the team. And oftentimes when people are being chosen, they know why they are being chosen. They understand their traits. They understand their gifts. They understand their liabilities. And so they have a concept of why they are being selected for a particular team. Well, in this instance, the idea is that God has a team and that there are certain individuals that are chosen specifically to be on this team. Now, what has become a problem is that individuals appear to be so focused on relishing the identity of being chosen that all they see is being chosen. They don't actually see themselves being chosen for a reason. They don't see an action that goes along with this chosen status. They are not clear about why God has chosen them. And so, therefore, they will just simply reiterate scripture after scripture after scripture, not about doing anything special, but simply about being chosen. So, this sort of passive identity around this chosen identity. And so there is nothing to do except to be chosen, to be special. And so what's missing is the action. And again, when asked about this action, the purpose of the choosing, there are often responses about this being a divine will. It may not make any sense, but they are just chosen. They will often also relate back to Abraham and simply being descendants of Abraham. Now, there are many people who are identifying themselves as descendants of Abraham. So this is a large number of people who are identifying as chosen. However, the way the narratives go, the chosen status goes along with this blessing status. And so it starts to narrow down to particular groups of people. And in this particular instance, it narrows down to those who would be considered the descendants of Jacob, according to the narrative. And so according to the narrative, you have these descendants of Jacob who are understood as chosen. The problem is that based upon being questioned many, many, many times, most individuals have not come up with what this choosing is all about. And we are going to talk about what this choosing is all about and what the expectation is of being chosen. And perhaps people are ignoring the expectation because it's a pretty weighty expectation and it actually requires work and effort in order to be what this chosen status is all about. And so the chosen is not simply about a status. Chosen is about an action. It is about an outcome. It is about a mission. It is about a purpose. It is about objectives. It is about goals. And so we're going to talk about what those are and why people need to be very diligent about their identities. And so when people are identifying as something, it's important that people go beyond simply the identity, the name, the label that someone has given them. And it is important that they study, again, to show thyself approved, rightly dividing the word of truth, line upon line, word by word, precept by precept. So let's go back to this chosen ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to very quickly actually look at what this chosen identity is all about and what people are actually called to do when they have this status. That means those people who are over in Palestine claiming to be the chosen ones. That means the people who are in Africa claiming to be the chosen ones. The people who are all over Asia, who are in the Americas, claiming to be the ultimate chosen ones. And so we are going to look at this to see what your calling actually happens to be. And what we have here is this word choose, to choose. And you see it is bakar. And basically, choose is about choice. If you look down below, you see it means the choicest. In other words, the best. The desired. So you see desired is one way to understand this idea of choose. And you see that multiple times there. It can also mean men, preferred, the required ones, the select ones. And you also have one that indicates the tested ones. And so, of course, one of the first things you want to figure out when you are reading scripture and you are engaging in exegesis versus eisegesis is that you first understand what it means to choose or to be chosen. What does that particular chosen mean? Same thing with blessing, by the way, because there are instances in which blessing is actually alternately curse. So it's important that you understand which blessing is being referred to when you are reading something. And so we see here that this idea of chosen or being selected is also associated with the construct of being acceptable, being appointed, being seen as excellent, being required. And so there are a number of constructs associated with this idea of being chosen. And so let's jump into these scriptures. We're going to look at several scriptures that talk about this idea of Abraham being chosen and what he is selected to do, what he is blessed to do. And if you look at Genesis 12:2-3, and we're looking at the King James Version here, it says, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee all of the families of the earth shall be blessed," essentially. And so you see this repeated theme throughout the scriptures that talk about Abraham being blessed. The theme is that Abraham is blessed to be a blessing. So it indicates that not some families, but all families upon the earth shall be blessed through Abraham. All of the families of the earth will be benefited because of Abraham, through Abraham's descendants. Now, I have never heard any of Abraham's descendants talking about it being their job, their blessing, to bless everyone upon the earth. That has not been a part of conversations. That has not been a part of teaching. There has been a focus on the being blessed, but not the part about being blessed to be a blessing. So for those of you who've been wondering, what is this chosen all about being this seed or this descendant of Abraham? It's not about going all around the world usurping different groups of people, upsetting the apple carts of indigenous people all around the world. It's not about going in and taking gold and silver and diamonds and every stone that can be taken from the earth. It is about blessing other people. And that can take place in a number of ways. However, what has happened is that people have taken this chosen status as a way to elevate self, as a way to be master versus servant, as a way to be oppressor and lord over others versus being a minister. Minister is another word for serving, by the way. And so you have people focusing on this idea of being blessed and getting blessings and simply hoarding them. Blessing is also not about going around enslaving other people, creating bond servants, and using the scripture to justify the bond servants and the taking of things. Sometimes people look at everything that has taken place in the narratives in scripture as acceptance of it. If you really look at all of the narratives in scripture, clearly all of those things could not be acceptable or desirable. You are looking at a number of people And many of these people are not very nice. And so clearly, there is no indication that people should see everything that has taken place in Scripture, which are basically the same things that take place in everyday life. The people in Scripture look very much like, behave very much like the people who are present today. So there really isn't that much of a distinction. They were involved in a few things that, for the most part, some people are not involved in today, but they were involved in pretty much the same things that people were involved in. The relationships were pretty much the same as relationships are today. So you don't see that much difference. And so there is no need to put these people up on a pedestal and idolize them, because that is also what is being done. So you have people not focusing on the Creator, but focusing on and justifying the behaviors of these created beings, ergo their perceived ancestors, putting them on a pedestal for replication and modeling and for revering. So let's get back to Genesis. We are in Genesis 18:18. And you see a reiteration. It says, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. How many nations? All nations. Does it say only Abraham's descendants? No, it does not. It says all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Be blessed through him. Be blessed by him. And so again, you see this theme of blessed to be a blessing. And the question for those of you who are running around identifying yourself as blessed to be a descendant of Abraham, the question is, how are you living out your mission of being blessed to be a blessing? What are your goals for accomplishing this mission of being this big blessing all over the face of the earth? What are you doing? What are the people around you doing who are also enjoying this identity? And this is for those over in Palestine, the rest of Asia, Africa, America, those of you in Europe, Australia, wherever you happen to be. What is your mission? And how are you accomplishing this blessed to be a blessing mission? Because see here, the fact of the matter is this. If people were really, this large number of people, the sands of the sea, if these people were actually acting out this blessed status, we would not have the problems that we have on the earth. In fact, you have many people who are not blessed to be a blessing, but have acted historically throughout time as something other than the traditional understanding of blessing. So when people's lands were taken, that was not a blessing. When families have been overturned, that was not a blessing. When people have been abused and mistreated and manipulated and dominated and oppressed over and over and over again, that is not what the scripture is talking about when it talks about being blessed to be a blessing. And so many people today are saying they have the newfound identity, that they understand themselves after coming out of 400 years of servitude as the people of the book who are blessed to be a blessing. And so the question, of course, definitely applies to this group of people. The people over in Africa who are also largely identifying themselves, along with those in the Caribbean, as these chosen ones. The question is, what exactly are you doing to live out this identity, this mission? What are the goals? What are the objectives? What are you doing concretely? How are you operationalizing this blessed to be a blessing to all of the nations of the earth? And have you been blessed to be a blessing? Have your ancestors actually been blessed to be a blessing? Some people want to be blessed and then they want to hold on to the blessing. But they also want to hold on to these scriptures that talk about these blessings. And so if you're going to have your cake, you need to eat it too. And so again, we have all nations of the earth. Let's carry on. And here we see Genesis 22:18. Again, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed the Creator. And in thy seed, this means the offspring, the clan, the children. In thy seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Again, the question becomes, how are people living out this particular dynamic? And for those of you who see yourself as grafted in, we go to the New Testament and we see in Acts a similar theme. And it says, ye are the children of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, and in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. All of the kindreds, all of the people. And so this is not a blessing for blessing's sake, sort of like learning for learning's sake. This is not a blessing for blessing's sake. This is a blessing that is attached to something, and it is attached to both receiving and then giving that which is received. It is not about going around the world trying to dominate people to make them believe what you believe. It is not about going around the world taking things from people because they don't believe what you believe and trying to use the scripture in order to justify it. It is about simply being a blessing. And here you see that the word bless is a little bit more complex than most people like to think. And so you see here, it's not simply about holding one's hand out and having that hand filled. The word for bless is barak. It's one of the words. And this word is associated with the construct of to kneel and bless. And so we're just going to quickly go over some of the other constructs associated with this word bless. And again, you need to be very careful when you are reading about blessed and blessings and being blessed and blessing others, because the word may have different meanings based upon the context. And so you see things such as abundantly blessed, those who bless. Blessed is everyone who blesses. Then you see this interesting thing right there in the middle. Boast. Boasting. Some people think that blessing is about boasting. And so you need to find out what type of blessing they are talking about. Then you have down from that in the same row, curse, cursed, curses. You go on and you see things like greeting, kneeling down, knelt, persisted in blessing, saluting, and thanking. And so you need to understand very clearly what is being said when someone is talking about this idea of blessing. Because what many people are seeing is not the traditional idea of blessing. They are seeing the traditional idea of boasting. They are seeing the traditional idea of bragging. They are seeing the traditional idea of arrogance, of conceit, of being full of oneself as praising self versus praising the Creator. That is for Judah, that identifies itself as praise. And so you often see that same dynamic from people who identify as Judah, as praise or praised. You see a dynamic of boasting. You don't see humility. You don't see blessed to be a blessing. You see boasting. And that boasting is not something that is going to endear people. It's definitely not about any creator. It is about self and congratulating self. And so, along with this idea of being blessed to be a blessing and blessing the people of the earth, those who identify themselves as Judah need to get a better handle on what it is they are doing when they talk about the name Judah and this construct of praise. What does that really mean? Is that about patting oneself on the back, about being chosen, or is there something else that is supposed to be going on with that? And so here you see just a little bit more close up all of these different constructs associated with blessed and blessing. And so again, make sure that you understand what it is that is meant by blessing, what it means by being blessed, and what it means to be blessed to be a blessing. And as you can see here, this becomes a little bit more complex because you can see that this word or this construct also relates to the idea of abundantly, altogether, and blasphemy even. You also see this idea of congratulate and greatly. And so when you see that praise is also a part of this idea of blessed and blessing, you see where there is this integration of those identities, the identity of Abraham and the identity of these people who are identifying themselves as Judah. You see this idea of praise, you see this idea of blessed, but we're going to come right back around now to this idea of the chosen ones. And the question is, what and where is the blessing? Remember, knowledge is power. Take care. See you soon.